Where's your attention right now? Not where you think it is and not where you wish it was. Where is it actually in this moment? If you're like most people I talk to, there's a decent chance it's somewhere out there, orbiting the news cycle, replaying a conversation that went sideways at work, catastrophizing about something on the horizon that may or may not ever materialize. And if that sounds familiar, there's also a decent chance you've been feeling some version of overwhelmed, anxious, or just plain exhausted. And here's what I want you to consider. That's not a coincidence. So let's talk about the most valuable thing you have. Tony Robbins says, people don't experience life. They experience the life they focus on. Let me read that again. People don't experience life. They experience the life that they focus on. Big tech figured this out a long time ago. The entire attention economy, social media, 24-hour news cycle, algorithmically curated content is built on one simple premise. If they can hook your attention, they can monetize it. Every notification, every outrage headline, every autoplay video is an engineered attempt to capture the most valuable thing that you have, your attention. What they don't tell you, what most people never stop to consider, is what the relentless theft of that attention is costing them. Not in dollars necessarily, but in well-being. Okay, story time. It was the spring of 2017 or 18, and it was still cool enough in Arizona to be outside in the afternoon. My son and I were walking through the neighborhood, like we do, and he was chattering away at me about something. And for the life of me, I couldn't even tell you what it was today. What I can tell you is that while he was talking, I was somewhere else entirely. I was out there spiraling through a catalog of future catastrophes, his education, his health, financial concerns, all the things that could go wrong for him and for our family. My mind was running disaster simulations while my kid walked right next to me, just wanting his dad to be present. And then something happened. Not a lightning bolt, it was more like a pebble dropping into a pond. Just a quiet little bloop, and then gentle ripples spreading outward. And by the time they reached the edge of my awareness, the realization had landed. My son doesn't need me out there. He needs me right here, right now. So I redirected my attention towards him and started asking questions about whatever it was he was talking about. I encouraged him to elaborate, and I listened. I actually listened. And that was one of the moments that changed things for me. In his landmark book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey introduces a concept that I come back to constantly. He describes 2 circles. The outer circle, the circle of concern, contains everything you're aware of in the known universe. Wars, famine, politics, the economy, your company's stock price, your neighbor's opinion of you. Inside that larger circle sits a smaller one, the circle of influence. And this contains everything you're aware of that you actually have some control or influence over. Very different circles. Here's the thing about stress. Most of it lives in the gap between those 2 circles. When we habitually focus our attention on things outside our circle of influence, things we're aware of but powerless to affect, we don't just feel stressed. We begin to develop what psychologists refer to as learned helplessness, a creeping sense that nothing we do matters. And with that comes apathy and despair. The flip side of that is equally true. When we focus our attention within our circle of influence on things where our efforts actually produce effects, we experience what I'd call empowered agency. The felt sense that I can take action to make desirable things happen. That I'm not just a passenger in my own life. This isn't merely a philosophical problem, it's a physical one. It affects our biology. Cortisol and adrenaline are essential hormones in an acute crisis. They suppress inflammation, sharpen focus, and give you the energy to get out of a dangerous situation. Incredibly useful when you actually need them. I mean, if you got to rip the door off of a car to get your kid out in a fire, that's what you need. But when you cultivate the habit of focusing your attention on things beyond your circle of influence, you effectively put yourself in a chronic stress state. Cortisol and adrenaline are constantly dripping into your system. And over time, this burns you out in the present, and cortisol, as a steroidal hormone that can penetrate cells and affect DNA, has been linked to impacts on telomere length, which is tied to longevity. I had a client, let's just call him client. And he was wound up pretty tight over federal politics, genuinely distressed. And we talked about the threshold between the circle of influence and the circle of concern. And he asked, but how do you even know where that line is? I asked him, are you in control of what happens in the voting booth? And he said, well, yeah. Then I asked him, are you in control of what happens in the Oval Office? And he had to concede no. So I said somewhere between the voting booth and the Oval Office is a threshold. And you get to decide where that is. You could vote and go home and tune the world out until midterms, or you could volunteer as a poll watcher. You could even run for office. But whatever you choose, that's your threshold. Everything beyond it, you actively tune out. Stoic philosopher Epictetus said it plainly. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. It is only after you have faced up to this fundamental rule and learned to distinguish between what you can and can't control that inner tranquility and outer effectiveness become possible. So find your threshold and then guard it. So here's where the rubber meets the road. Knowing all of this means nothing without awareness. That moment of recognition when you catch yourself. Oh, my attention has drifted again. I'm out there in the future, or I'm back there in the past. That moment of noticing is everything. It's the hinge point. And without it, all the theory in the world won't help you. The practice is simple, even if it isn't easy at first. Release and return. Notice the distraction. Release it. Even just saying the word quietly to yourself can help. And then return your attention back to where you actually want it. And if you want to build a mental and spiritual muscle to do this more readily, mindfulness meditation is the gym. Jon Kabat-Zinn's mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which he outlines in his book, Full Catastrophe Living, is where I'd point you to start. 8 weeks of MBSR has been shown to thicken regions of the brain associated with learning, memory, and emotional regulation, and to thin the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. You can literally reshape your brain by training your attention. Now, I won't pretend to be a meditation expert. MBSR is just the beginning of what's possible in that world. What I can tell you is that it had a profound effect on my anxiety and my journey from barely coping to thriving. Now, a word of warning. Give yourself grace in this. Our attention is so fragmented that it's not unusual to have dozens of distracting thoughts in a single minute of meditation. That's not failure. That's the workout. You can't walk into a gym and bench 225 on day one. You start with the bar and you build muscle over time. So try this tonight. Before you go to bed, sit on the edge of your bed with your feet on the floor and your hands on your knees, your back upright, and your eyes closed. Breathe a triangle, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, and 4 seconds of relaxed hold. 5 cycles, 60 seconds. And while you breathe, just notice where your attention goes. Don't try to control it. Don't try to release the distractions yet. Just breathe and practice 60 seconds of awareness. That's it. That's the starting point. So here are a few questions worth sitting with. Where has most of your attention been landing lately? Inside your circle of influence or beyond it? And what are the things that most reliably hook your attention and drag it off? Are they things you can actually do something about? Or are they things where you have no real agency? Awareness leads to presence, and you must be present to win. I hope this is helpful. If it is, please share it with someone you care about. Someone who might need to hear that they have more power over their experience than they realize. And if you'd like to go deeper into this kind of work, I'd love to have you join me. My book is coming out later this summer, and you can join the waitlist now at mycoachdave.net. I'd love to see you there.